Now let's discuss all of this with Francesco Rizzuto. He's a professor of European law at Liverpool Hope University. Professor, thanks so much for speaking to us on this news hour. Now, the EU-Israel Association Agreement has been in effect since 2000. It really forms the basis of the economic cooperation and political dialogue between these two parties. But given Israel's continuing actions, which many have described as war crimes, has it now breached this agreement with its European partners?
Good afternoon. Well, the Spaniards and the Irish are saying that they have, and in all probability they have. But it's one thing to declare something. It's another thing for the EU with its member states to act on it. And it's not so much the economic pain that the EU would suffer. It really wouldn't. It's less than 1%. Some may suffer a little bit more than others, but I think it's less 0.8% of the EU's total trade. It's more important for Israel, of course, but if the EU went to that stage, it would cause serious political ructions. And I doubt very much whether there would be unanimity amongst the member states to go to that step. Because remember, many member states, even though they're highly critical of what Israel is doing, and frankly, they're quite helpless, just as the Americans are, to stop the Israeli government, it would be a different order of things for them to suddenly almost declare a rupture, if not economic war, with Israel.
Do you think this is another situation with countries like Spain and Israel, who have been very vocal, Spain and Ireland, excuse me, who have been vocal about and condemning Israel? More talk and very little action, because as you say, you need that all-in vote from other EU members for this to actually take place, to effectively end economic or sanction Israel.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. It would be extremely unlikely. I can think of one scenario, because I know the Italians have been particularly directly vocal with the Israeli government, in effect accusing them of willfully attacking the UN forces, and there are over 1,000 Italians there, in addition to other Europeans. I think, let us imagine a really terrible situation where some of these UN peacekeepers, let us say Italians, were actually killed. Then I think that there would be an escalation in the EU-Israeli disagreement, let us say, as to how far Israel should not go or is going in its conflict with Hezbollah, and of course the terrible tragedy in Gaza. So let's see how this plays out. But quite frankly, sadly, I would say, of course, Israel is probably in breach of its international obligations. And these, by the way, human rights obligations as well, these are part of these association agreements that the EU signs with them, with various countries, Israel included. But it's one thing to, as I say, declare a breach. It's another thing to act on it. So I don't think that's likely at the moment, frankly.
Prof, it's quite sad to think that real action would only be taken from countries when there is loss of life from members of their own countries, soldiers dying, because Americans, Europeans have already been killed in Gaza. They've already been killed in Lebanon. And it would seem then that civilian life is not as important as military life. And this, of course, is hypothetical if there was real action to be taken, yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. But I guess we're talking about symbols here and flags and perceptions. And I think that if soldiers who are there to maintain the peace, arguably, are killed. By the way, the Italian Prime Minister and others have already said that if their soldiers are attacked, they will fire back. I think it's about time they said that, frankly, with or without United Nations approval, because, frankly, Israel's behavior has been outrageous. And I can actually understand why the Irish have rightfully said that they've destroyed destroyed some of these posts so that the eyes of the world wouldn't be able to see what was going on. So you're right. It's terrible because, of course, many Americans, many Europeans have been killed. On both sides, by the way. And, of course, there's lots of hand-wringing. But who can stop this situation? Who can stop Israel, let us say, because it appears to be the dominant economic, political, and military force in the region? If the Americans can't do it, and they really are the only ones who stand any chance of stopping them, I don't actually see the Europeans with their threat of, or some European countries with their threat of a sort of economic boycott doing it. It's a desperate situation, really.
A desperate situation indeed, and civilians keep paying the cost. Professor Francesco Rizzuto in Liverpool, appreciate your time and analysis.
Thank you.